The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the Weymouth Community Access staff or its board of directors. WCA, in compliance with FCC regulations, is prohibited from exercising control over the content of independent member-produced public access programming.
Hello, welcome to Streaming to the Stars. I'm Roland Khorshidianzadeh.
And I'm Kandice Zimbleman.
And this is going to be a show where we're going to discuss sci-fi, horror, fantasy, whatever, you name it.
Good.
But today we're going to be talking about Star Trek, so let's dive into that. But before we do that, I'm just going to give a shout out to Trek BBS. I'm Lord Garth on there. Been posting on there for 20 years. And anyone you want to give a shout out to, Kandice?
I would like to give a shout out to my mom, my dad, and my brothers, because we're all big Star Trek fans.
Okay, great. So we'll trade off with the questions. What got you into Star Trek?
I started to get into Star Trek when I was really little. They started to show these reruns in the 80s, and it was the old original one.
Yeah.
And my family also took me to see Star Trek 2. With the Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
I watched it in surround sound, which was kind of amazing. I still remember being like moved in the theater, like the sound, right? And then I was a huge fan of the original. And when the Next Generation first came out, I rejected it at first, but then they had a marathon on TV. My mom started watching it, and I could hear it, and it was so good. I started watching it, and then it became my favorite thing.
Well, my parents used to watch it back in the 60s and the 70s. My mom was a huge fan. She even got a record with Leonard Nimoy and 45.
Wow.
But I didn't get into it myself until 1991, and here's what happened. I saw Star Trek V in the theater in '89, but that didn't exactly convert me. But then one day we got a VCR, and then one of the first things that my mother bought was Star Trek IV, the one with the whales.
That's the best one.
Yeah, and I was in my room while they were watching it, and they were all laughing, and then my father was like, "I'm surprised Roland's not interested in this." So then I was like, okay, I'll see what the big deal is about. And then I started watching midway through, and then from that point on, I was hooked. I went back and watched the very beginning, and I loved it. And then I wanted to see all the other Star Trek movies. There were 5 at the time, and I couldn't wait for Star Trek 6. I saw the preview for Star Trek The Next Generation at the beginning of the video for Star Trek 4. And the Next Gen had just come out on VHS at that point. So I rented Encounter at Farpoint and watched that. And I thought that was so horrible that scared me off from watching Next Gen again until I heard that Spock was making an appearance. So I watched that.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So the show had really improved at that point. And then I started watching The Next Generation. And I was super excited to see Star Trek 6 in the theater.
Awesome. I've seen every film. I've seen every show. I just haven't finished I haven't seen all of Discovery yet, and I haven't finished all of, was it not Voyager, Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
Deep Space Nine, I haven't seen it all. So.
Yeah, I've seen all the episodes of all the series, and I keep on top of that.
I have seen all the animated ones. I actually saw them all. It's because I'm an animator, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. What's your favorite movie?
Okay, so let's move on to favorites.
Yeah.
One of my favorites, so I love Next Generation. I like the original a lot, but I love Next Generation so much because it gets more in depth, and there's more like political science, and there's so much good writing. But one of my favorite episodes is Measure of a Man. There's so many good episodes in Next Generation. Like, what's the one with the Picard with the flute with the
Oh, that's The Inner Light.
Yeah, and then I know in the fandom a lot of people hate Wesley Crusher, but I love Wesley Crusher. I could relate to him, and there was an episode where he realized he became like a super being, like the Traveler, And that is probably my number one favorite ever. But there's so much in like the first 2 seasons that is so good, and it's always good. And then Borg episodes were always a popular favorite of mine because they play with this, like, remember with what was it, Hugh?
Yeah, Hugh.
Hugh, and they constantly question like a lot of things. So.
Okay, my favorite series right now is actually Discovery.
Really?
Really, yes.
Really?
I love it.
So I haven't finished it. We should watch the rest of it together. So I like the camera work in it. I just don't really like the screen. I don't like the stories as much.
No, the show has great cinematography.
Yes, the cinematography is fabulous.
If you don't like season 1, season 2 has a lighter tone, and Captain Pike takes command of Discovery in the 2nd season, and they're looking for the Red Angels. Every week is a different mystery.
Okay.
And it's a lot more fun than season 1. Even though I love season 1, I think that someone who's a traditional fan would like season 2 better than season 1.
The look and feel reminds me in many parts of a favorite film of mine, which is Event Horizon. There's so much in there that looks like Event Horizon, and there's even an actor from that, which freaks me out because at times I'm like, wait, is this Star Trek or Event Horizon? And that's a film I've watched over and over again. I haven't seen the director's cut of that either, but
Jason Isaacs is in Event Horizon. Besides that, I like the original series.
Okay.
I have all of that on DVD, and one of my favorite episodes is the one where Kirk gets split in half.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I am Captain Kirk.
I also like A Taste of Armageddon, where there are these 2 planets, they're at war, and they're treating war like a video game. Then Kirk destroys a computer, and then one planet's going to wage war against the other, and then suddenly they're faced with real war, so now they have to make real peace instead of sending people off into an incinerator to die.
Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Or? What's your favorite movie?
Oh my gosh, there's so many good. So the original cast, the original series, I feel like those are the best films. There are so many. So like, I obviously love Star Trek 4. It's funny because it's a comedy, and it's about like saving the whales, which was a thing at the time in the 80s. And but like, I know some people hate the first film, but I love it, where it talks with V'ger and trying to reach this creator and whatever.
I like the first Star Trek movie. It's an acquired taste, but visually, I think it's the best one, even to this day.
Khan goes without saying. I think that's a top popular one. But I liked the themes in certain films, like Undiscovered Country is the one where you have like this Shakari, like
no, that's 5.
Oh, 5.
The Undiscovered Country is the one where Praxis explodes and the Klingons and Federation make peace with each other.
Okay, so the one with the
floating head, that's Star Trek 5.
The fake god alien, that's 5, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that one, there's so many like quotes in there that I really like. There's certain things in that. Star Trek 2 has like the deaths, the funeral scene with when Spock's funeral. That's a really well done. That's one of my favorites. It's just so it always emotionally gets me. And then there's I believe it's Generations, where you have like this nexus. I like the creativity of this idea of there's this place where it's like a tear in space or something.
Yeah, it's where you feel joy and time has no meaning.
You go to this place, and it was like this ultimate escapism and exploring that. And yet, it was Kirk, who you would think would love that, realized that it wasn't real enough for him. And the ironic thing is that Picard was the one to bring him, and I would have thought that Picard would have liked that, because he made mistakes in his life, like he had his heart, he lost his heart, and he has like a fake heart. You would have thought he would like it, but he was just so objective about, I have this objective and I have to meet my objective, which most of the films tend to be like objective driven.
Well, you know what happened? He was looking at the Christmas tree and he saw the flashing light, and then that reminded him of the Nexus and a supernova, and he's like, I have to get back to this.
Yeah.
And then he encountered Kirk, who, like you said, you'd think that he'd love the Nexus, and he did. He was more indulgent. He was like, I used to be like you, couldn't see past my own uniform, but now that he was retired, he was willing to indulge in this life he didn't live before, until Picard snapped him out of it, and he's like, okay, that's right, I still have to save the day, because ultimately, at the end of the day, saving the day is who Captain Kirk is.
Correct. Should I talk about when I photographed all 5 of the captains?
Yeah,
would
go
you like
ahead.
Me to talk about it? So in 2012 at a Comic-Con in, it's called like Wizard World in Philadelphia, I got to go to that Comic-Con due to my friends. My friends are like very generous, and I was there. And my other friend, Steve, he got us into the press section, and we photographed the captains. And it's funny because someone who's extremely controversial is Bill Shatner.
Yeah.
He was fabulous. He was so sweet and so nice, and I really liked him. I loved to photograph him. It was wonderful. I couldn't have asked for a better chance to do anything like that. Then there's Scott Bakula. He has this thing where in person he looks one way and on camera he looks another. In person he is stunningly, elvenly beautiful. He's so gorgeous. He's so pretty. But when I put the camera on him, he has this like old man look. And it's so weird because he had like this beautiful hair. He was so beautiful.
Maybe he just needs makeup.
But when a few years after that, he did some kind of TV show where he was like, was it a cop or something?
Oh, he's on NCIS, I think.
And
or CSI, one of those.
It was like when I shot the photos, he looked like that, but in person, he looked like something else. Mm-hmm. And then another funny thing is, so Kate, who was Janeway.
Yeah.
The people who were in the audience were interviewing. I don't know how they got the microphone or who. They were absolutely rude and cruel and sexist to her, that asked her questions that wasn't even her films or movies or shows she did, anything. And it was kind of really like oddly sexist, even in like 2012 at a Star Trek convention.
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
So I blogged about it, and that blog like got the most hits of any of the other blogs. I would have thought like, you know, Picard or Kirk or Cisco or whatever would have been like the top popular one. No, just that blog, and I told that story. People just shared the crap out of that.
Well, I want to segue into something now.
Sure.
The bad behavior that the fans expressed towards Kate Mulgrew, not only is it sexist, but people use the fact that they don't like Voyager as a cover, but really that shouldn't matter when you're talking to the captains or the actors as people.
Well, so if you want to see that, I believe someone took video of it from that Comic-Con. It's like Wizard World. It was 2012. I believe it's on YouTube. But yeah, the way that people treated her was just horrible. I hated it. And it was funny because the actors there, all the captains, seemed to all know each other, which is funny because they're not really in any of the films or shows much together at all, other than like Generations and.
Yeah, they rarely ever are on screen together.
Yeah. But they all seem to have a really good rapport with each other. They even got on like scooters and were riding around all the people in the audience and everything. And I almost got like run over by, I think it was Patrick's one. He almost ran over me.
That's funny.
And when I was there, I was dressed in a pirate costume because I do cosplay also. So.
You know, it was a show Kate Mulgrew is involved with right now. It's called Orange is the New Black.
I actually haven't seen it. I've heard it's great.
You should watch it.
I should.
It's set in a minimum security women's prison, and she plays a Russian crime lord, and she's fantastic in the role.
Great.
Very different from Janeway, but.
Have you had any first-hand experiences with any of the cast from those shows, or?
I went to a convention in 1997 where I saw William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy on stage, and they had great interactions with each other. I met Renee Auberjonois and Marina Sirtis at a convention in 1996. Ooh. And in 2002, I met Walter Koenig at the Boston Super Mega Fest. Another person who was there was Peter Tork from The Monkees and Adam West, Batman himself.
Yay. So
I got him to sign a book of mine, graphic novel Batman in the 60s, so that was great.
That's great.
So I haven't met anyone recently. I went to a convention a few years ago, and I saw Bob Picardo. Mm-hmm. So I haven't been to that many conventions, but I've been to a handful of them. I
haven't been to a convention in a while. I can't even remember. I've never been to a number. I just can't remember them all. I used to go to like festivals too, like run fairs and things like that, and you'll have sci-fi people there as well. Anything else?
Let's talk about Gene's vision.
Oh, Gene Roddenberry. So, would you like to talk about that first?
Yeah, sure. The thing that got me into Star Trek in the beginning while I was watching Star Trek 4 was Captain Kirk talking about how he'd bring the whales into a place where they'd never be hunted, and when you end up in the future, you see that the 23rd century really is this better place where humanities come together, and it's not just international, it's also interstellar. And I like the fact that pollution has been done away with, crime has been done away with, poverty has been done away with. Basically, they're a better society than we are today. They're still not perfect. They still have to deal with human frailties, but it's a sign that we've improved over the course of the next 300 years. What I like better about Star Trek than other science fiction is the fact that it shows that we're improving. Who wants to look forward to a future where everyone's worse off? I wouldn't.
Me. That's very dystopian. Yeah, I don't want that.
I mean, even when politicians campaign, they're talking about how they want to make things better. No one ever says, I want to make things worse. People want to hear that things will become better in the future.
I don't think we want to get too much into politics, though.
No, we're not touching into it. I mean, just in general, everyone wants to campaign to make things better.
Correct. Okay, well, Roddenberry, I like Roddenberry. He's one of those interesting cases where he's like two different persons. Like, he had this idealism aspect of himself that was really good, and then he had this other self that was kind of dark, where he was kind of a dirty old man. He cheated on his wife. He had many side lovers, and so
it gets
it's confusing.
Worse. He not only had his wife and he had his girlfriend Majel Barrett, but he also had a fling on the side with Nichelle Nichols and anyone else. So he's like having multiple relationships at the same time.
Yeah. So there's that. But his ideas, and there are a lot of positive things that he's done. So, for example, Will Wheaton talked about all the good things that Gene used to talk about him and inspire him and whatever. But then Roddenberry's actual son was, when Will told him that, he was livid because he was so jealous. He was like, why wasn't my dad like that to me? So this is why you have like this weird dual, it's like he's this two different people kind of thing.
I'm guessing that Roddenberry and Will Wheaton would never ever be involved in the same production.
That's sad. That's really sad. Because I saw I believe it was a documentary that Roddenberry's son did, and I thought because I listened to Will, and I like Will, and I like Wesley Crusher.
Yeah, I like him too. I don't have a problem with Wesley.
I don't have a problem with that character. I thought it was a great character. Also, the fact that he went through, the character had like where he was the top of everything, and then he got bored, and then his like grades fell because he felt stymied or whatever, and then he evolved into whatever the super being, the traveler or whatever.
Wesley's just not a school person.
Which I don't know why they didn't do anything with that, because you could have gotten a whole series of him or a whole bunch of episodes of him saving Voyager or defeating the Borg.
Well, that's the problem. If he got Voyager home, what are they going to do? The whole point is they're on the other side of the galaxy.
But that would have been a great season finale.
You mean series finale, yeah.
Yeah, or series finale, correct.
I don't know how fans would feel about that, because remember the last episode of Enterprise, you guest starred Next Generation characters, and they basically took over the whole show that episode.
Yeah, that was kind of an odd ending. So I have so many mixed feelings about Enterprise. So I feel like so many people vent a lot of their hate at the actors, but there's nothing. I don't think the actors did anything wrong. I think that they were given scripts. This is what they're told to do. So there's only so much they could do with that.
Yeah.
The story was weird. Like Hoshi all of a sudden was a kung fu expert. Like Deus Ex Machina. Like now she's kicking butt, and also she's like this prude. And then she goes on vacation. And she's like a whore.
Oh, I remember that.
And then was it Malcolm? He all of a sudden becomes like Mr. Evil. And Malcolm.
Wait. When did that happen?
Okay,
I'm not
so
a
he's
huge
the
fan
security
of Enterprise,
guard. So he's like a security guard, kind of a security officer, whatever.
Oh yeah, I know who he is, but I'm not.
Right?
I don't
Towards
know what.
And all of a sudden he becomes like this evil, like almost like Blackwater, kind of creepy. He's always wanting to just beat people up, and he's so like oppressive of everybody.
Oh.
And then they fight there are two characters that actually had like really good arcs, and then the ending's was awful. So Trip started out, I hated Trip when they first started out. So you remember Trip, right?
Yeah.
But then he actually became like the best character because his character arc, like he became like this really great guy. And then him interacting with, it's T'Pol? T'Pol. I always confuse it with T'Pau. It's T'Pol. And so they're doing like this therapy stuff together and they start bonding and they become like attracted to each other. And she actually becomes more relatable. Like I can care about her where I couldn't stand her if the show first started. But then like towards the end, it was like this weird flip-flopping with the characters. Like in one episode, she's suddenly married to Archer in some alternate universe or something, and right. And then also, so Malcolm, this doesn't make any sense to you. Malcolm is Malaysian, but he's a white guy, and he acts like he's obsessed with everything European, but he's from Kota Bharu.
Wait a minute.
In Malaysia.
He could have lived in Malaysia, but he was interested in Europe. But then there's his accent.
I don't know why.
I really can't talk much about Enterprise because that's the one Star Trek series I couldn't get into. And it's not because of the actors.
Well,
I agree with you. It's because of the parts.
They screwed up the story, so they took... it was very Bush era creepy, like
yeah.
You know?
Archer and Trip remind me of Bush.
Archer, so they're all nerds in the beginning, right? They're all like nerds, and they're kind of like boring, but like astronauts. It's kind of cool though. But then all of a sudden, Archer's like obsessed with Zefram Cochrane, and he has like a little idol, a little statuette idol.
Well, in fairness, that makes
right?
sense.
But then at the end, he impales a guy, totally destroying all his credibility. And then at the end, when they're like.
Wait, did he impale the guy in the Mirror Universe?
No,
or just Archer?
They turn into like evil pirates that invade people, right?
Oh, I know what you're talking about now.
And then he impales this guy, and then at the end, where they're supposed to be getting some award, the best character who deserved the award is gone. And then we have like Riker and Troy just commenting on like the past. Which, no beef, I don't have any beef with them in particular, but it's like this weird, like, glamorous holodeck simulation where everyone's like all extra glamorous and,
yeah,
you know?
They did a horrible job matching the way they looked in Pegasus.
I think it was on purpose, though. So, but like, the thing is, I believe that's how they revealed how Trip, he was like a martyr.
Episode.
Yeah, he got martyred, and I couldn't have been more upset because I actually cared about Trip. The other thing with Trip was every freaking alien would fall in love with Trip. Male, female, didn't matter. Anywhere, including T'Pol. So if there's any alien, they're gonna like want to date him or do him or whatever.
Must be his aw shucks personality.
I don't know.
Or he's got the moonshine.
Like he's like on a prison ship, and then every guy is like, all the prisoners are like in love with him. Mm-hmm. Any alien will just fall in love with Trip. It was just weird.
Wow. So what, were they trying to make him like the Captain Kirk of Enterprise?
Only he's not as like suavemente as Kirk, because Kirk is like, I don't know, awesome. Like there's just something about Kirk. He's on screen, and you're like, wow.
Yeah, he is, but in fairness, I also grok Spock. Spock is my favorite character in the original series.
I loved
much
Spock.
As I like Kirk.
I loved Spock. He was my favorite too because he's more introspective. I think the ladies loved that too. But I like them both. Them together was like this pair, and I like them, especially in the films. It shows more in the films.
Yeah.
The interaction between them, that they have this bond.
Well, there was this episode of the original series called Return to Tomorrow where these androids take over Kirk and Spock's bodies while new bodies are being built for them. I don't know if you remember that one.
I think so.
Okay, yeah. But at the end of the episode, to fool one of the aliens, Spock's body is killed off, and then Kirk thinks that Spock actually dies, and then Kirk's like, my friend Spock. And then this super being called Sargon revives Spock, and he's like, I could not allow someone so close to you perish, so then he's revived. So that's Star Trek II, kind of before Star Trek II even existed.
Oh, true.
So they were close even back then.
Is that the one where, was it Spock is like all happy again to see him, or?
No. That's Muck Time, where Spock thinks that he killed Kirk in a fight to the death.
Okay.
And then he's like, one of the Vulcans, T'Pau, is like, live long and prosper, and he says, I shall do neither. I've killed my captain and my friend. So then he beams back up aboard the Enterprise, and he's giving a report to McCoy. And then Kirk shows up right behind him and he's like, Captain, Jim! And then he tries to hide the excitement. And then McCoy's like, oh yes, your reaction was quite logical in a pig's eye.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah.
We're about to wrap this up, so
Wow, we've only got less than 5 minutes.
So
Time
do you
really
want
flies.
to give out your, you mentioned was it a bulletin board or a message board?
Oh yeah, I post on Trick BBS. I already mentioned them earlier, but
okay, follow up with that then.
Yeah, I first registered on there in 1999, and that's my go-to site to talk about all things Star Trek. And I was a moderator on there from 2002 to 2008, and a lot of good people there, a lot of interesting discussions. If you're a fan, I recommend you join and jump in.
Okay.
Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to in more detail?
I honestly, I feel happier as just a fan that likes to watch and consume the films and shows and stuff and online. You know what? I like a lot of the fan-made stuff. Was it Star Trek Continues?
Yeah, we should talk about that.
I love that. I love it. It's different, but I love it. And then what was it? Axanar?
Axanar.
I
saw the trailer for that. They never went through with the actual production, but they look
I saw a full
really
film.
well made.
I saw a full film.
It
was very like talking head documentary style or
yeah.
style. I've seen a number of documentaries as well, including Bill Shatner's.
Are you talking about Chaos on the Bridge, where they talk about the first 2 seasons of The Next Generation and what happened behind the scenes?
Honestly, I've seen so many that they all kind of jumble together in my head, and I watch them all around the same time.
Oh, they had a DS9 one recently, What We Left Behind, where they talk about what went on in making the show, and they actually plan out what the first episode of the 8th season would have been like. The writing team all got back together, and that was great. One of my friends donated to it, so I'm kicking myself in the head for not donating to it, but it was a really well-made documentary, and Ira Steven Behr hosts it, and Ira Steven Behr, as far as I'm concerned, is like the Rob Zombie of Star Trek. He's cool.
Okay. Yeah, other than that, I mean, like, I'm on Twitter, and the most popular cast are all on Twitter. They're very active. Will Wheaton, I follow a lot. Brent Spiner, I follow a lot. Patrick Stewart. Those are the top 3 that I like to follow. They're very active, pretty much daily. And then I know Mark Hamill is not in Star Trek, but I also follow him, and he posts a lot of Star Trek stuff.
Yeah, why not?
Believe it or not. So I do follow Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill also does voice acting for animation, and I'm an animator, so I love a lot of the stuff he does. And it's funny because a lot of the animators in the past few years have kept mentioning that, so people seem to know that he did the Joker voice in the old animated Batman series. And it's funny because just a few years ago when I said that, the people were like, I didn't know that, but now everyone seems to know that. So
tying that back into Star Trek, it's kind of funny how J.J. Abrams was involved with both Star Trek and Star Wars.
Both. Yeah, I love it. Well, he's a fan.
Yeah.
But what I like about Star Trek a lot is how they deal with a lot of themes. It's almost like a parable, like how old parables were, but translated for like a modern audience or even a 20th century. So it's 20th century, now we're 21st, but I feel like some Star Trek is headed in this really dark area and people hate it.
Well, unfortunately, we live in dark times, and the human condition, you have to deal with the good and the bad, so you kind of have to look at both.
Correct.
But tying into, well, we still have time.
Yes, we still
The
have
Measure
time.
of a Man.
That's
an episode where we look at people's rights.
Yes.
I mean, 150 years ago, that could have been slavery.
Yeah. Another one I like, the other favorite is the Drumhead, which I feel like people, if you haven't seen it in a while, you should go and watch that, because the Drumhead explains, it's very black and white, not so much black and white, but it's very to the point of, it takes a gray area and explains it. And there's been so many times in the past, 10 years where I reference that, and people can see their biases for certain things.
Yeah, I feel like the Drumhead and the Measure of a Man are both episodes that we could probably devote an entire episode to.
Yes, maybe we should. You want to do that?
Yeah, we'll do that next time.
We'll do that.
We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in, and hopefully this is the first of many episodes.